All right, I wanted to make this video a while back, so I'm gonna make this video. This video is intended for people who are taking any language proficiency test, especially if you're taking the IELTS or the TOEFL test, which are English language proficiency tests. Now, understand that these English language proficiency tests and others like TOEIC, and there's other types of English language proficiency tests. They're designed to measure one's level, English language level, or English language ability. That's what they're designed to do. And they're specifically designed to see how well a person can integrate into an English speaking scenario, society, environment, organization. That's what they're designed to do. So the IELTS General is designed to see whether you could function well, communicate well, comprehend well in the English language, using the English language in that type of culture and environment. And mainly for maybe business purposes or just for general kind of maybe immigration purposes, general reasons or business reasons. And then you have IELTS academic, and you have TOEFL, which is IELTS is more of a British-based English proficiency test, and then you have TOEFL, which is more of a American English proficiency test. And they're designed to see whether a student, a non-native English speaking student, can integrate well, communicate well in a English speaking classroom, in a native English speaking classroom, based on natives. So basically, when you're taking the IELTS academic or you're taking the TOEFL, well, these tests are not just designed to see if you know the language, but they're designed to see whether you will be able to participate in discussion in a classroom, in a math classroom, a Western or English-speaking math classroom, or English, or social sciences, or any type of. Could you participate in those discussions? Could you write those papers? When you're asked to write a term paper or a research paper, would you be able to write those papers? Would you be able to participate in discussions? Would you be lost? Will it be very difficult for you to integrate and assimilate or function? Maybe not assimilate, but function in that type of environment, whether on campus or in the classroom. So these are the purposes for these tests. And I want to call out, because I think a lot of people think that tests are quite mechanical. A lot of people feel if you understand the test items that you can do very well on the test. Meaning, if you know, not understand, but if you know the test items, you know what questions are being asked, you can do very well on the test. And my comment to that is, that's probably 5% of the story, knowing what's going to be on the test. Obviously, it's always good to know what type of questions are going to be on any type of test. It's always good to know what type of questions. That's fine. However, that's only 5% of the battle. 5% of the battle. 95% of the battle is knowing English. And when I say knowing English, I mean knowing English to the point where you understand English, where you get the idioms, where you understand the context, where you can think and understand deeply. And this is where I think a lot of people don't get it. And then you have some non-native English speakers who actually have spent a lot of time with native speakers or have lived in a English-speaking culture or environment or worked for an English-speaking or Western organization. And they've been doing it maybe for 5 years, 10 years, every day or consistently. So that's the best training. They understand the context. They understand the idioms. They understand the figures of speech. They understand the colloquialisms. They because they're engaging in real time, in real scenarios, in real situations. The language. They have gone through their trial and error in the English language. So a lot of times these people, they believe the IELTS and the TOEFL are quite easy. And for them, it may be easy. For them, it may be very easy, especially if they have a job where in their job and they work and they're using the English language, working for a Western company, and they have to read email, and they have to sit in meetings, and they have to talk to customers and talk to co-workers, and they have to, write emails and write reports, and there's a lot of reading. They have to read email. They have to read instructions. Of course, they're going to do very well because they're getting the best training possible for them, and as a non-native English speaker. Even for a native English speaker, the more you use the language, the better you have a command of the language. So, the more you write a paper, the more you write emails, the more you write synopses, the more you attend meetings, the more you discuss meetings, the more you do anything, the better you're going to become at it, regardless of whether you're a native speaker or non-native speaker. So the problem that we have is when these type of people who engage the language in a very contextual, authentic way, they believe the test is easy. So when someone asks them about the test, they say, "Oh yeah, the test is easy. All you got to know is the test questions." No, you got to understand. If the person that's asking you the question, or the person who needs help on IELTS or TOEFL, if they don't have that same situation, if 90% of their day they're speaking in their native tongue, and they're not writing a lot in their second language or in English, or they're not speaking a lot in English, and when I say a lot, I mean 80% of their day they're speaking in English, large percentage of the day, or they're doing it in a very authentic way, even if it's 50%. They're doing it in a very authentic way. You got to understand that studying or attending classes, that's not authentic. It's very artificial. So sometimes studying or attending courses may not be the best way to approach IELTS and TOEFL. The best way to approach IELTS and TOEFL, and I'm not saying it hurts, but it's not the final product. It's not the only thing you can do or you should do. What you should do is get some native English speaking friends, okay? Or if you can't get some native English speaking friends, some English speaking friends, even if they're non-native, who have a very good command of the English language, excellent command of the English language, maybe because they have spent time in an English speaking country. And engage them, and I have seen that. I have had friends who spoke no English, and they lived with certain English speakers, native English speakers, and over maybe a 2-year period, they're very proficient in at least the speaking and listening part. They may not still be as efficient in the reading and writing, but they're very proficient in speaking and listening. So my whole point of this is if you want to learn the English language and you want to do very well on these tests, you know, you have to plan and prepare at least a year in advance for the test. And if you, and the longer you can do it, that's fine. Get some English speaking friends. If you can, if you can work or do a project that's going to require you to speak and use the English language in a very authentic way, in a very contextual way, then you will have a command of the English language. Also remember that the IELTS and TOEFL, the TOEFL and IELTS test, they test your ability in four domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Okay? So that means you have to, when you're going to engage the English language and study for these tests, prepare for these tests, you really need to spend equal amount of times engaging reading and writing, speaking and listening. Okay? You can't just spend time writing and expect your speaking to get better. Okay? All four domains require equal time, because remember, as I said, when somebody's asking you to take the IELTS or the TOEFL, when the organization is asking you to do this, they want you to speak as if, or as close as possible, like a native English speaker. All right? And that takes time. All right? And test questions have very little to do with it. If you know the English language, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the question is. If you know the English language, you know the English language. If you know algebra, if you know everything about algebra, it doesn't matter. You don't need to know what questions are going to be the test. All you need to know is that this is an algebra test and you're going to be tested on algebra or geometry or trigonometry or biochemistry. If you know it and you understand it, you don't really need to know the test format. The test format is a very, very small percentage. It's going to be a very small percentage on your success on the test. So I took the time to kind of explain this. Hopefully people who are taking the IELTS and TOEFL understand this, that it's not a mechanical process, that, you know, if you need to take the TOEFL or IELTS, please don't think a month or 2 months is enough time. It's really years. You really need to prepare years in order to do very well. Especially if you need to get a score like an 8, 8.5. You need to prepare. You need to really engage. And don't even think about the TOEFL and IELTS while you engage in the language. You know, think about that maybe a little bit closer. Learn the English language first. And then you'll be very, very successful. Hopefully this helps someone. I know some people don't want to hear this because, you know, their motivation for taking the IELTS and TOEFL and learning English is, you know, very instrumental in that they're trying to get something accomplished, they're trying to get a visa, they're trying to get a job, and they need it right away. Unfortunately, these tests are designed to weed out the people who need it right away and really highlight and congratulate the people and reward the people who already have the skill set or the English language ability, and motivate people who are not on that level yet to learn English in a very authentic way. Again, hopefully this helps someone. I felt the need to make this video because there's been a lot of conversations about this in the various discussion groups. Thank you. Have a pleasant day.